we've all played not so good games. There's good games that we play, and then there's the not so good, like forgettable, mediocre, maybe even bad games. Well, I did play plenty of good games last year in 2024, which I covered that top 10 already, if you want to go watch that. But I also played quite a handful of pretty forgettable games and even some bad ones. And that's what this top 10 is going to be for, to go over those not so good games. Now, just like that top 10 video, the same exceptions apply. It's going to be no games, no DLCs or expansions that are not standalone, like they're not their own like separate copy you can run by themselves, and no games that I've replayed if it's the same version that I replayed before. If it's like a new version I haven't played before, like a port or a remaster, remake or something of the game, then that is allowed. I just wanted to make that clear because in the last video someone had brought that up to me, and I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and start this. I don't look, I'll be honest, I don't have much to say about these games, so this video is probably going to be a whole lot shorter than the good games one. But yeah, I don't have much to say about these because they're pretty forgettable. Alright, now let's go ahead and start. Okay, number 10 we have Dr. Mini Games for the PSP. You know those minis that you would find in the PSP store back then? They're kind of like the DSiWare and the 3DSware in the eShop. It's like that, but the PSP versions, and they're vary in quality greatly, and this was one of them. It's just a very mediocre WireWare clone. Art style is very ugly. There's a very small amount of micro games, and those micro games go from very forgettable and uninspiring to downright unfair and just unfun to do. But I had a bit of a decent time with it. It's all right. But nothing special there. Number 9 is Piano 3 for the GameCube. This is one of the biggest disappointments for me in 2024 because I don't know. I love Hideki Kamiya's work. This is one of his games, and Beautiful Joe is my favorite Capcom game. I've recently been getting into Devil May Cry, and I really love 1 and 3. Like the third game, it's peak. I love the third Devil May Cry game, and Bayonetta seems to be fantastic too. I haven't gotten to those yet, but this game is basically kind of a predecessor to Bayonetta, because a lot of the DNA of this game is put into that character in Bayonetta and the way the gameplay is. There's this stylish and sassy movement, the shooting, it's all there, but it's just such a monotonous game to play. Like, it's all the same brown and gray, like futuristic setting and barren wastelands. So the levels are just unfun. It's all the same robotic enemies over and over and over again. You just stand there and shoot. It's basically Devil May Cry 2, but a bit better, but not bad, but it's still pretty mid. So yeah, probably be one of the biggest disappointments for me. Such a big waste of potential. Then number 8 is Bleach. I'm not gonna say the whole name. It's whatever. But it's Bleach GC. It's GC because it's for the GameCube. This is the first console game for Bleach, so I can't really fault the devs too much for its lack of quality. But yeah, it's just another very mediocre arena fighter, or fighting game, anime fighting game. It's like the gameplay is very stiff. It's not that fun to play. The special moves are okay, but the characters are just so lifeless. They don't have any expressions. Their animations are so poor. It's a very goofy game. The way you unlock characters is atrocious. You have to go through arcade mode and a sequence of characters every time to get certain characters, and that's awful. The story mode saves it from being a bad game. There's 3 scenarios. One where Ishigo does the usual, saving Rukia from her execution. And then in the second scenario, it's Renji doing it, which is interesting. And in the third one, it's you being Byakuya and just slaughtering everybody opposing you during that arc, which is pretty funny actually. But so I think the story mode's interesting. Problem is, I can't read any of it. It's all in Japanese. So that's the only problem. But the idea of the story mode is interesting, so there's that at least. Number 7 is, now I know this is gonna sound very silly, but it's called Samus Goes to the Fridge to Get a Glass of Milk. You heard that right, Samus goes to the fridge to get a glass of milk. This is a Metroid Fusion hack that takes like 2 to 5 minutes to beat. You simply are told by your boss, Adam, if you're familiar with Fusion, that he wants a glass of milk and you have to go get it. And then for some reason, you fight the final boss of Metroid Fusion. You fight the final boss of Metroid Fusion to get the glass of milk, and that's it. He's like, yay, thank you. And there's like a second one in the Game Boy, which is a ROM hack of Metroid 2, and that one actually is good because it takes longer to beat and there's a bit of exploration you can do to find your power-ups, and you fight a Metroid with those power-ups. So you know, that one's actually good. But yeah, this one, it's just, there's nothing to say. It's just a 5-minute ROM hack, but it's whatever. And number 6 is PSX Funkin'. Now, if you heard that right, Funkin', yeah, this is a PlayStation 1 port of Friday Night Funkin'. Now, it's not itself really that bad. It's kind of bad because it just, one, I'm not really a fan of this game in the first place. I never went through the whole thing on like PC or anything, like the actual game. But I did actually go through all the weeks in this PS1 port because I'm a complete weirdo. So what's the problem? It's very glitchy, a lot of missing sprites, a lot of missing character models doing songs, a lot of songs sound messed up. So yeah, it's a very shoddy port. It's kind of it makes sense that the creator abandoned the project, because I guess it just ended up being too much of a hassle to try to make it work properly function, which makes sense. I know the game looks very simple, but it probably is a lot harder to put that into much lesser hardware like the PS1 than you might think. So yeah, it's a very shoddy port, but it is playable, I guess. And number 5 is Fighter's History. Look, I'm just gonna spend 30 seconds on this, max. This is literally Street Fighter 2, but bad. Everything about it is literally Street Fighter. The characters are very indicative of Street Fighter, the stages, the moves that you use, the special attacks, like even the character selection. It's literally just Street Fighter 2, but it just plays worse. It's just not that fun for some reason. Like, the characters just suck. The only thing I like about it is Karnov, this cool guy like that uses I don't know, I like this guy. That's about it. Then number 4 is Gambare Goemon Karakuri Doshu. This is the second Goemon game. The first one was like an arcade title that's like a side-scrolling action game, so I thought, okay, it's gonna be more of the same. No, instead it's a very migraine-inducing top-down Zelda-like exploration game that you go through stage by stage. You need to find like some gate key or ticket for you to continue past the gate in each stage. It gets very convoluted and you're timed as well, and so it's a very annoying game. I hated my experience with it, so yeah, it's pretty bad. It kind of turned me off from continuing the Goemon series, but let's see if this year I can like get that flair back. But yeah, it was bad. Number 3. Okay, so number 3 is Karnov. This is if I mentioned this guy in the Fighter's History section, and that's because that character was used for Fighter's History. He's like the only thing I like about it, and he's the only thing that I pretty much like about this game. So in his origin game, Karnov, pretty much you're this burly guy, Russian I think, and you have to go through a set of stages to find your treasure or something, and the gameplay is just so stiff and it's BS. Like, the enemies are complete BS, the obstacles, it's just a super unfair, super unfun game. It's like tries every single moment, tries to just trip you up with whatever cheap tactic it can. The bosses are not fun to fight. The music is like, it will give you a migraine over how long you're gonna end up hearing these like very limited tracks, but I thought that the ending was cute when he like finally gets to the treasure, and the credits are nice, so it's not like all bad. But there is like one stage that I did find decent, so it's not all bad. But like, oh my goodness, this is a arcade game I do not like in the slightest. Number two is, this is where we get to the abysmal part. So Universal Studios Theme Parks Adventure for the GameCube. Yeah, this is definitely the worst GameCube game I've ever played in my life, and it's my favorite console. Like, I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you, or I still think it is, and so I'm very biased, but even I will tell you right now, it is abysmal. This is like the pinnacle of bad licensed games. If you want like that, if you want to for some reason torture yourself with what truly is a bad licensed game, it's right here. You basically play as some kid. You're able to walk around the Universal Studios park at the time, and that is in and of itself a cute idea if it wasn't such a slog to get from point A to point B with the rides, and you get lost so easily, and the map does not help you whatsoever in your placement. It just makes it even more convoluted with like where it puts you on the map and how it's like layered and stuff. It's just not a good experience to get from point A to point B. But what about the rides themselves? It's just a minigame collection. That's all it is. And the minigames themselves are nothing to write home about. You know, there's like an E.T. ride, Jurassic Park, but all these are just so like either they're completely forgettable or they're just not fun to do, and they're unfair and they take too long. The only decent one, which is the reason why I didn't even, it saves it a little bit, but it's the firefighter one, where you rescue people from like a burning building. That's it. Screw the quiz. I'm not going to complete your, well, I did, but like they screw that quiz. Like that, I cannot believe that's a mandatory thing you have to do. Pretty much you have to go to each ride, complete the ride, and you get a stamp. If you get all the stamps, you beat the game. That's pretty much it. It's, yeah, the pinnacle of bad licensed games, I think, is this one. Alright, now before I get to the absolute worst thing I played in 2024, I'm just gonna quickly blast through the honorable mentions. Now, there's no replays here. These are just games that I would consider like 11th through 15th place, meaning that I think these are actually decent. These are actually okay, so I had quite a bit of enjoyment out of them, but not enough that I think they're good games. Honorable mention number 1, or 11th place, is What Beats Rock, which is an interactive website. Not really sure if it really qualifies as a game, but hey, it was released in 2024, so that's finally one 2024 release across both of these videos. Hey! And it's just a very simple interactive interface where you just input what beats rock. You put paper. Okay, what beats paper? Scissors. What beats scissors? And you just go on and so forth until what you input isn't able to, according to the system, beat the previous object. It can be a little fun, but it gets old fast, as you can imagine. The only reason why I didn't put it on the top 10 list is because it does have a bit of a big community where they make custom games all the time, so there can be some pretty unique games you can play for you to, like, you know, try to go through, but it still does kind of just get old fast. It's just a cute little site you can interact with. Next one, or like the second honorable mention, or number 12, is Samus Goes to the Fridge to Get a Glass of Milk 3D. So you can tell by the 3D that yes, this is a hack for Metroid Prime instead. And instead, this time, this is a third one, so this is what ends the trilogy of these super short, pretty funny ROM hacks. It's you have to get chocolate milk for Adam, and you're like in the beginning area of Metroid Prime, the space station, and yeah, you can get the plasma beam, so it's kind of funny incinerating the space pirates. It did get a laugh out of me, but besides that, it's okay. You know, you can beat it in like a couple minutes like the other ones, but this one's fine. It's whatever. Honorable mention number 3, or number 13th, is Dexter's Laboratory Mandark's Lab for the PS1. This is actually a decent licensed game, unlike Universal Studios theme parks, because it's Dexter. You know, how can you not like Dexter's Laboratory? Pretty much you're Dexter and you're walking around your house and your laboratory, and yes, it's another minigame collection. But what makes this one decent is that the minigames are, well, they're a bit enjoyable. For the most part, they can be a bit forgettable and unremarkable, but some can be a bit decent. Like there's like this shooter one, this kind of on-rail shooter where you're like you're using a bug spray to spray the cooties in Dee Dee's room or something, can be a bit entertaining. And there's like this air hockey one, which I think is actually good. That is actually a good minigame, especially if you do the 2-player. Yeah, you can actually do 2-player as well in this, which elevates the experience. So yeah, it's a decent minigame collection of Dexter's Laboratory. And the 4th honorable mention, or the 14th place, is Tori Panic Pack. This is a collection of 3 Tori like mini games. They're like they're Tori games by themselves are already quite small in scale, but these are like even smaller that they put them together in one package. First one is Tori Genesis. This one was alright. I just didn't particularly like the levels all too much, but the music's pretty good. And there's Jungle Jam 2. I think it was like a fan event or something that went on, and there was like some exclusive levels made for that event, and that's what this is. I thought this was the worst of the bunch. It's not bad, but it just even worse levels, and I don't know, the gameplay just didn't do it for me. And then there's Tori Missions, which is more precise platforming, more intense music. I'm like, okay, this is what I want. This is Tori, and I thought this was good. But you know, if I average it all out, overall this package it's all right, you know. But hopefully that Tori Saturn that's coming up this year in 2025 will get this kind of sour taste in my mouth that this Tori set of games put, because I love Tori 1 and 2. And then the last honorable mention, or 15th place, so I think this is the most decent one out of the bunch, out of this entire video, is Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights for the GameCube. It's Scooby-Doo. You know, like, I can't fault it for that. That already puts it far above literally everything else here. It's very charming. The voice acting is there. The music is very reminiscent of those times. The art style is very faithful. So like the models, the environments, it's all indicative of Scooby-Doo. So that much is there. The charm is pure, like and it's oozing. It's the gameplay though that makes me not think it's a good game. It tries to be a Metroidvania. You play as Scooby-Doo and you have to try to rescue your friends that disappeared in this haunted mansion you guys went to, and you like find these gadgets for Scooby-Doo to use, but they're not that handy. Like they're very finicky and not fun to use. The level design is annoying to traverse, so yeah, it kind of fails to be a Metroidvania, but the charm of it just makes me not really want to dislike it. I think it's an okay game. You know, I had some decent fun with it. And it can be a bit funny. Alright, now with that out of the way, we can get to the game that took me a whole year to beat, by the way. Like, almost an entire year, I've been putting it on and off. And that is Dot Runner Complete Edition for the 3DS. This is an eShop exclusive title. It was a mobile game before, but the reason it's called Complete Edition is because it includes extra content. And yes, I also did the extra content, and yeah, this is the worst game I've ever played in my life. It's straight down. I could make a whole video just on this game, so I'm not going to talk about this for too long here, but I'm just going to go ahead and summarize it. It is completely flawed as a 3DS game because it's a dungeon crawler. It's like a precision movement dungeon crawler, where its predecessor was like a DSiWare actual RPG dungeon crawler. You know, you fight enemies, you attack them, and you gain experience and stuff. But here, it is like a weird movement dungeon crawler where you're moving like you have to get these dots Pac-Man style, and going through these hoops that when you go through the hoops, the dots appear and you have to get them. And there's enemies as well, which guess what? You don't see them in the first person view in the top screen, you see them on the map. So can you see what the problem is here? You have to look pretty much at the map at all times because you don't know where the enemies are going to be, and you can't see ahead of you because there's so many twists and turns in these mazes that you go through in each level, so you have to look at the bottom screen the entire time. That already defeats the purpose of it being a dual screen game. The music gives me a migraine. It is literally the same like 2 or so tracks, and again, it is like maddening. It turned me insane every time I tuned into the game. The story is absolutely nothing. It's like this cooking world, and the characters are like utensils or something. Your allies are vegetables, or they call themselves that, and you have to like, each level is called a skillet. The bad guy is like this flaming hot person that when you turn on the 3D slider, it completely slows the game to a crawl frame rate rise, which is hilarious, but also tells you just how poorly optimized this version of the game is. Yeah, there is literally almost nothing to like here for me. Absolutely nothing. Like, I think it's just, oh my goodness gracious, like, it's just, it to me, it fails on all fronts as a video game completely, and that's why it's at the top of the list that I played last year. But wait, just like in the top 10 games video, I also have to do a little awards show for the worst stuff. So this is now going to be the Paisen Crappy Awards for those that I'm about to shame for appearing on the top 10 too much. First is the platform that made the most appearances, which was the GameCube, with 3 games in the top 10. My favorite console ain't looking too good right now. Then it's the console maker that appeared the most, Nintendo, with 6 games, again. And finally, the developer that appeared the most, Data East, which developed 2 of the games in the top 10. What a shame. And that concludes the very short Paisen Crappy Awards. And yeah, that was my top 10 worst games I played in 2024. Hey, and guess what? Unlike the top 10 best games that I played, this one actually has some 2024 release games. Not that that's a good point, but hey, yeah, I do play some 2024 release games. It's just that the ones that I played weren't all that great, as you can see. And I was trying to see if I can cram Anton Blast in there, and I know that probably could have been one of my favorites, so that probably would have been like the shining gold bar in the line of 2024 stinkers I played. But that's besides the point. So tell me, did you play any bad games, any mediocre games, any mid games? You know, any games that you just thought were subpar? Yeah, for me it was a mixed bag. I played a bunch of good games, a bunch of fantastic games, a bunch of bad games, a bunch of very forgettable mediocre games. It was all over the place. But hopefully this year in 2025 will be a bit different with the games I'll try to play that are on this year release. One of them is Xenoblade Chronicles X for the Switch. I'm going to be trying that out. And yeah, a like and subscribe would go a long way. I'd really appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next list that I make. Bye.